Develop a strong mind and you will have a strong body. If you have a strong body but you don't have a strong mind, it's not going to do you any good. Life isn't fair. Life is unpredictable. The pace of change is merciless. The amount of adversity and difficulty that can happen is endless. And a Stoic has to cultivate not just the physical strength to be able to withstand all that, but the mental strength, the fortitude to be able to not just survive it, but thrive inside of it. I'm Ryan Holiday. I've been lucky enough to teach Stoicism to the NBA, the NFL, sitting senators, special forces leaders, people who are doing real things in the real world, where mental toughness is a critical ingredient. Success is impossible without it. And in today's episode, that's what we're going to talk about, how to use Stoicism to cultivate one of the most important and unfortunately one of the rarest things there is in the world, true mental toughness. In Letters from a Stoic, Seneca talks about how he pities the person who has never been through adversity because they haven't had a chance to prove themselves, right? And so the reason we push ourselves physically, why we get in the cold plunge, why we get up early, why we take on things that other people say are impossible or difficult is to test ourselves. It's to see what we're capable of, right? Some of the adversity of life is going to be outside of our control, but it's only in seeking out adversity that's in our control that we train ourselves, that we develop the muscles, the skills, the confidence to know, hey, I can handle this. Marcus Aurelius says, how will you meet the adversity of tomorrow? He says, with the same weapons that you had today. You have to cultivate and sharpen those weapons. You have to build those muscles, and you do it by seeking out adversity, doing hard things, not on accident, but on purpose. One of the great Stoics, Zeno, said that reading books is a way to converse with the dead. When Zeno was a young man, he went to the Oracle of Delphi and he got a prophecy. They said, you will become wise when you begin to have conversations with the dead. And he ultimately realizes that what the Oracle means is that by reading, we are able to talk to people who lived very long ago. If you think about Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, one of the books that I lean on, you're getting direct access to the brain of a man who lived 2,000 years ago. Tolstoy's A Calendar of Wisdom, which I read every morning. That's a guy who died over 100 years ago, but he's preparing something for you to think about and read every single day. We become stronger, we become better, we become wiser when we have conversations with the dead. Perspective is, of course, everything, right? If you've ever been stuck in traffic in Los Angeles, it was a miserable, annoying experience, an ugly bit of modernity. But if you've ever flown over Los Angeles at night, you've seen that same traffic and all of a sudden it's beautiful, this sort of interconnected living organism that is humanity. I'm on this trip right now with my family and we just had all these different delays, all this inclement weather, that on the one hand we could have said, oh, this ruins the trip. Instead we said, this is an adventure. This is an experience. Mentally tough, mentally resilient people, they manage to find the right perspective. They manage to grab the right handle on the situation, right? Do you see what's good in it? Do you see what it allows you to do? Do you see the way inside the obstacle? Or do you see where you're stuck, where there's the impediment, where you can't do something? There's a lot that happens in our life that's out of our control, but what is in our control is the perspective we choose to take, the lens at which we choose to look at things. Epictetus says every situation has two handles, right? One will bear weight, the other won't. So what are you going to grab this by? How are you going to choose to see it? How are you going to choose to try to carry it? It's the same thing, a different perspective. Life is like that. We can look at it one way or we can choose to look at it another way. We can choose to look at something as an obstacle or we can choose to look at something as an opportunity. We can see chaos if we look close. We can see order if we look from afar. We can see disadvantage if we look at it one way. We could see advantage if we look the other. We can see obstacle from this perspective, opportunity from the other. It's a little bit counterintuitive, but one of the best ways to increase our mental capacity, our mental toughness, is by doing hard physical things. Seneca says we treat the body rigorously so that it is not disobedient to the mind. We're practicing showing our body who's in charge. We're building the muscle of the mind. So we learn that when we think we can't do something, that's not always true. That we have the power to outthink, to outcreate, to push past the limitations or the warning signs and do things that a lesser version of ourselves wouldn't think possible. Stephen Pressfield talks about this. Martin Luther King actually talked about this idea that there's sort of a north and a south in each of us, and that we're in sort of a war against the lower self, that the higher self is battling to surpass, to transcend the lower self. And I think when you treat the body rigorously, when you create a strong and tough mind, you're winning that battle, and that makes you so much better. There's things that are up to us, and there's things that are not up to us. Epictetus, one of the great Stoics, he says that the key task in life is separating matters into two categories: the stuff that's up to us and the stuff that's not. You can't be mentally tough or mentally resilient if you spend all of your mental energy resenting, arguing with, blaming, regretting the things that have happened that are outside of your control, that weren't your fault, where fault it no longer matters. Just as you can't be physically tough, you can't be physically resilient if you are throwing yourself over and over again at brick walls that you do not have the strength or power or control or ability to change. You have to know what's up to you and what's not up to you. This is the serenity prayer. You have to have the wisdom to know what is up to you and what isn't. You have to have the courage to face what is up to you. You have to have the serenity and the peace and the stillness to accept what is not up to you. The Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield once pointed out, he said, look, astronauts are not braver than other people. They're just meticulously prepared. Courage isn't this thing that you magically have. It's something that you have to cultivate. The athlete that hits the winning shot, that's not just from raw bravery. That's from the fact that they have practiced it over and over and over again. They know what they're capable of. I've said before, I don't believe in myself. I have evidence. Courage, confidence comes from that evidence. You have to cultivate it, and you cultivate it by doing hard things, by pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, right? By not listening to that voice that says, you can't do it, it's hard, what if it doesn't work? You cultivate courage, as Seneca was saying, by treating the body rigorously, by pushing past those boundaries, by incrementally making yourself a little bit better and a little bit braver. We can't just hope to be brave when it counts. We have to cultivate that bravery, we have to cultivate that courage slowly and steadily over time in the work that we do on ourselves. I hope you like this video, I hope you subscribe, but what I really want you to subscribe to is our daily Stoic email, 1 bit of Stoic wisdom, totally for free to the largest community of Stoics ever in existence. You can sign up at dailystoic.com/email. There's no spam. You can unsubscribe at any time. I love sending it. I've sent it every day for the last 6 years, and I hope to see you there at dailystoic.com/email.